Hello and welcome back to the Perception Podcast, where we just see things a little bit differently. And now, for the first time ever in my life, that statement is actually officially true. Yes, I actually managed to get a medical professional for once in their life to actually listen to me and actually really understand what I was saying. And I actually got diagnosed with Asperger's or high functioning autism, however you like to label it. I know that now they use different terms. I'm not quite sure which is the preferred term at the minute. But yeah, a medical professional actually diagnosed me with Asperger's. That's a word that I use, that's a word that I grew up using. Literally all I want to do is hop on here, talk about my recent diagnosis, talk about my thoughts and feelings, what the assessment was like, because I know obviously this was supposed to be aimed at people maybe going through similar things and stuff like that, and obviously having assessments and diagnoses is obviously a big part of people with mental and physical disabilities, so I feel like this is a really important subject to touch on. Some of you might not already know, I've already had one autistic kind of assessment meeting kind of thing to see whether they could formally diagnose me with like a type of autism at that time. Unfortunately at that time they couldn't, they said it was autistic traits. Now working with a lot of people in this kind of sector, SEND kind of sector, and I'm quite close with a lot of people that are just around people with autism a lot, and they've always been of the opinion that I did have autism, so it's always been a big thing for me to kind of, it's always a kind of weird balance, because obviously you don't want to have extra kind of words attached to your name, especially on your statements and stuff like that. It's always perceived as like, especially personally, you can find it hard to deal with extra labels and stuff like that. But I also think it's good to kind of get, as soon as possible, it set out, right, what challenges am I facing, what support do I need from the government and stuff like that, just so everything's laid out on the table, kind of everything's black and white, so that you know what's going on, everybody else knows what's going on, and there's no kind of excuses. And as you know, I love structure, so I think it's always just been a case of that, just figuring out what was going on with me, not what the problem was, but what the challenge was, so that I can get the right support moving forward. I know a big thing for my mum coming out of the appointment was kind of like, I guess, frustration in a way, not anger, but frustration that I'm now getting diagnosed at the age of 17 with obviously 6 months to go till I'm 18, so it is kind of feeding into that common preconception that maybe the council tries to leave off diagnosing you and kind of put off diagnosing you until they really have to, so that they don't have to pay for it and deal with, which obviously in this case they've literally waited until I'm 17 and a half to finally admit that yes, I do have autism, I'm on the spectrum. But I don't know, was that just the wrong mix of people assessing me? Was it I didn't tick the boxes in a way that I needed to? It's all a bit weird, but I feel like from my perspective, it's not a frustration thing for me. It's kind of a relief. I know towards the end of the appointment, the woman that was assessing me actually sat there and just asked me, "Do you see this as more of like a like kind of a sad thing that you've been diagnosed with this, or more of a relief?" And just straight away I just said relief, because as I said, it's just something in black and white that nobody can dispute now, that I do struggle with this, so that not even so that I can receive the support for it, just so I feel like a bit validated, I guess, in a way, because sometimes when you're struggling with stuff, and especially when you're affected other people in a negative way and you don't quite understand why, you can often, or at least I know I have, like, blame yourself and just think, oh, because I've only got autistic traits because I had the assessment in the past, and obviously I only have autistic traits, and I need to stop kind of using that excuse in a way and just kind of deal with my problems like everybody else, and I'm failing to in a way, which is why I'm hurting other people. So I feel like this kind of doesn't give me an excuse in any way, shape or form. Like you can never use these things as an excuse or like a card to use against people like some people unfortunately do in society. It's just one of them things that kind of validates what you're going through, and even though you still have to take responsibility for your actions and all stuff like that, it's just as I say, just a big relief, a validation, and an unwavering sense of it wasn't just me failing. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't just another case of me like failing to control my emotions, failing to just deal with everyday life. There was also something underlying there that wasn't diagnosed for a long time, that was severely impeding my ability to read emotions and my emotional maturity and my imagination and my social integration and all stuff like that I've struggled with all my life, and that they've been the biggest issues for me. When people just go, well, you haven't got autism, so it must just be that like you don't want this to happen or something like this, or you're not being proactive in a way or something like that. Just to have that kind of label there, even though labels can be bad in a disability sense, I feel like in this way it's actually really reassuring. And there is obviously so much that I could say on this topic. There is so much that I could dive into, and hopefully I actually hope to do that in the future. I didn't even plan for this episode, but kind of just like sorting my thoughts out in my head so that I could talk about it in a succinct and kind of helpful way, rather than just blurting out information and blurting out knowledge like I know I can, and I probably have anyway. I feel like if I had like got the diagnosis, come home and then just jumped on here, if I'd have done that, I feel like it wouldn't have been helpful in any way. It wouldn't have been educational or informative in any way. It would have just been, I got Asperger's, and it would kind of felt a bit weird, like I was celebrating it, when I'm not. But I'm not like kind of not celebrating it either, and not ashamed of it in any way, because it's just a weird situation. It's a string to my bow, but it isn't really a string to my bow, and it's like, how much do you talk about it? Because it's just a touchy subject, I think, within society. I feel like especially with people with disabilities, as I've seen with the lead up to the Paralympics as well, which I thought is a bit weird, especially with the advertisers as well, even though I feel like them people are amazing. I've seen a few times on there the guy that's doing, I think it's pull-ups with one arm, and that is so inspirational. It's just incredible. I don't even get how that's physically possible. But I feel like a lot of the time with disability, it comes down to, right, who is the worst person affected, and what is their biggest challenge, where a lot of the time there's a lot more of the population of disabled people that have a lot of less challenges but are a lot more frequent, so they build up and build up and build up to create this massive challenge. And I feel like, especially, I don't even think that people are meaning to do it, because obviously BBC do not have a disabled team that understand what it's like to be disabled or anything like that. And I feel like it's even good, and I don't want to complain about it anyway, it's good them highlighting like these massive challenges and how inspirational these people are overcoming these massive hurdles. But I do think it also sets out the precedent that like anybody that just has autism, obviously in inverted quotes, I don't mean that statement, I'm talking about other people that say that just have autism, or just have anxiety, or just have depression. That's a normal thing almost, and it should be normalised. I'm not saying it in that way, I'm kind of digging myself a hole here, but I feel like if you have autism nowadays, that's kind of like the normal challenge to have, and that you should just get over it, where autism can affect people in a massive, massive way that not a lot of people would understand. And this is not cry me a river for myself. It's kind of like, it's weird seeing how other people are struggling with it and they're not getting the right help, because there's millions and millions with autism, so they're kind of getting a slight fraction of the budget for autism that the government has sent out. And just because a lot of people have it and deal with it, doesn't mean that it's not a big thing to overcome. Like anxiety and body dysmorphia and all stuff like that, I feel like they can often be pushed to the side until they're like the limelight topic, like the hot topic almost of disabilities. I feel like at the moment, especially, men's mental health and depression is definitely the hot topic of disabilities, which sounds absolutely awful, but I feel like it is. And it's like, what do celebrities and the media and all sorts like that, what is the pick of the week for them almost? And it's like everything else then goes to the back burner, where I think it's just, we should have an overall look on mental, I don't know what the right word is, difficulties, impediments and physical disabilities. When I actually had the appointment, the lady felt it really important to actually stress to me that autism is not a disability. And I was kind of sat there like, although obviously I have cerebral palsy and I do know kind of the difference there, I don't think it's a bad thing calling autism a disability. I don't agree with the word disability anyway, and I won't get into that. I actually find the word handicap that Americans use, and it's unusual for me to agree with Americans on anything, but I do find that word a bit more, I don't know, just easier to digest. I feel like I sound like an absolute hippie liberal right now with what's the right word to use, but she was talking about whether autism is a disability or not, and she kept stressing like autism is not a disability, don't see it as a disability, as if like a disability is like a bad thing. And it's like, just I don't know why as a society we're getting better at it now, but it's just everything that we struggle with, it's just, and me myself, I'm a huge idiot for doing it as well. Not an idiot, but kind of naive in doing it myself, that it's just like, right, these are taboo issues that we can't talk about, we have to deal with ourselves, and it can't actually be an actual thing that needs to be diagnosed. It's just me being a drama queen or something like that. I feel like as a society as a whole, especially men and stuff like that as well, that kind of macho kind of precedent that like you have to do everything on your own, you can't talk about it and all sorts. So I feel like while I don't think it's the right word to call it a disability, to then also stress that it's not is kind of like negative in a way, because it's like, oh, it's not a big as deal as a disability, it's not as big of kind of challenge to deal with on a daily as a disability, which I don't think's correct in any way, shape or form. As I said before, I'm going to completely waffle on here, and this is 2 days after being diagnosed, and I'm sure you can hear how frazzled my brain is. Even though I knew I had autism, I knew I had Asperger's or high functioning autism. I knew because so many professionals have told me, but just I don't know what the right word is, advised me for a long time to have this assessment and all sorts, because they thought it would help me. I've known it for such a long time, but for some reason actually like having that validation there is such a weird feeling, because I feel like even on here in the past I've had to say like self-diagnosed Aspergic or whatever I've said in the past, or even when I meet people like, oh, I have autistic traits, and I always feel like that was something that people are like, why do you feel the need to say that? If it's just traits, it can't be that big of a deal. But autistic traits still means there's something there that people are dealing with every single day, and it's just one of them things. It's I don't know why it's shunned, I don't know why it's taboo, and it really it's annoying to see that in like 2021 of all years, with the great kind of development in gender identity, in sexual identity and all sorts like that, even in mental health, that we still find it kind of taboo to kind of need help and need support. And if you've not just been hit by 3 buses in a row and broken every bone in your body and are in the worst coma imaginable, then you're just being a drama queen and you're moaning about your life. Because I also think there's some people that have completely, utterly, really, really difficult lives. Like my mum's a complete example, that just don't talk about it. Maybe don't have autism or something like that. Just don't talk about it because they feel like they just have to get on with it in a way, and they can't moan or anything like that. And I feel like it can eat up at you. I feel like we need to be less proud as a society. I feel like it's definitely a British thing to kind of go, no, I'll deal with it on my own. And I just think that's not the wrong approach, but I do think it's a ignorant approach when there's nothing wrong or vulnerable with saying I need help. There are so many things that I think I'm missing that I wanted to say on here, but I just think the last kind of thing that I wanted to touch on is the actual assessment itself. And obviously this is nothing to do with the assessor. Actually, the lady was so nice that actually did the assessment, because I have talked about like the ticking box exercise that a lot of these sort of things can often be, and how kind of demeaning that is. And especially for like an older kid going into that situation, it can be quite demeaning, because it feels like you almost have to act up in a way to a character, like a more disabled, in quote marks, like character, just so that they can tick their boxes and go, yes, he is definitely disabled, yes, he is definitely autistic. And I think that's wrong. I feel like you should just be able to be yourself and be like diagnosed on merit, rather than can you tick every one of these boxes. Because the lady was really transparent actually in the meeting. I wasn't actually expecting her to be this transparent, and she was like, because you have anxiety, body dysmorphia, depression, that sort of thing, cerebral palsy, all stuff like this can all appear like autism or exacerbate autism or something like that. So she was literally, like, she told us that she has to literally say why it's not these things before she can say it's autism. And I don't think it should be like that. I feel like you can have literally everything under the sun and still have autism. For me, there's a reason why they are called different things, because they are caused by different things. Do you know what I mean? Just because you can give an example of anxiety leading to autism, it doesn't mean that 100% of the time your anxiety or whatever else leads to autism, even if it's just 1% of the time, that the autism can be caused independently. That still means that there is autism there. Do you know what I mean? I feel like it's completely wrong and appalling, and actually is transparent in my journey, as they like to say all the time. My journey is completely transparent in that, is that they literally try and use every excuse, every other kind of reasoning in the bloody handbook that they can possible to not have to admit that you have autism. They told me that my anger outbursts and my anxiety and all stuff like that was not mentally caused of the drain of cerebral palsy, was physically because of my cerebral palsy, which literally makes no scientific sense and is absolute drivel. And in my opinion, the person that said that not should be fired, because I've got a personal problem with that. If that is literally their medical opinion, then they are actually wrong, giving the wrong medical advice, and they're actually doing more damage than good. So they shouldn't work in the sector. But that's just my opinion on the subject. Literally saying that your mental issues are caused by a physical issue literally makes no sense. In the physical sense anyway, obviously the mental drain of cerebral palsy can affect people in that way, but it's clear to see with me that especially not 100% of the time, cerebral palsy does not drain me in the ways that it would other people. I'm fairly, not completely in any sense of the word, but fairly okay with being disabled, and like approach life with the fact that I am disabled and don't shy away from that fact, and actually use it as one of my main kind of identification points, as one of my main characteristics. So it's never been that for me. They've called me just a narcissist in the past, basically a sociopath. And it's like, it's just so clear how they just will do anything possible to not kind of concede the fact that you have this issue and have this problem. And obviously there's the money side of it, and I don't envy the government because it is a problem. Obviously, having to spend money on every single person, just like prisoners, it is a problem. Whatever way you do it, you're going to upset some people, just like the welfare system. Whatever way you do it, you're going to upset a lot of people. But at the same time, even if it costs so much more money, I don't see why you would purposely not help somebody, and actually not even not help them, like lie to their face and make them feel like they're the ones in the wrong by saying they're a narcissist. Not just saying you may have autism, but just being transparent and saying we literally don't have the money in our budget to diagnose you, but know that you have autism, which is a perfectly fine thing to say. No, they instead make you feel completely inadequate from a very young age. I've been told I was a narcissist from the age of 4, 5, 6, that kind of age, which is severely damaging, I think. Anyway, I've got quite a tough skin, but I feel like any kid, if you said they're a narcissist and they know what a narcissist means from the age of 6, that's not going to have the best effect on them. But yeah, I just feel like it's not even the wrong way to go about it. It's appalling that in this day and age they're trying to find every excuse in the book to kind of say, until they concede. It shouldn't be a concession that somebody is autistic. It should be, right, you are autistic, let's make a plan moving forward. What can we do to help you? That's what it should be. That literally goes back to medieval times of this person's done something a bit weird, they must be a witch, they must be this, that and the other, there must be this other reason for it, rather than maybe they just did something differently that day. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Do you know what I mean? It goes back to that alienation kind of thing, kind of trying to fit their own narrative in a way. I don't even know what I'm supposed to say, but it's wrong in every sense, and I'm not explaining myself the best, but hopefully you kind of get the gist of what I'm trying to say. My brain is frazzled, completely frazzled, even though I knew that I was Aspergic subconsciously. It has been a bit of a reality check, I guess, just one of them things that, like, just like having cerebral palsy, having low mood, it's just one of them things that you just kind of have to get used to slowly. It's not a case of complete acceptance straight away. It is, even though it is corny and it is completely hippie and liberal, it is right, it is a journey. And although they don't need to say it a million times within 5 minutes, they are right in using the word. It is a complete journey. You can go backwards and forwards on it all the time. It can be slow and it can be quick sometimes, but it's never immediate. So yeah, I think that's the end of this podcast. I wanted to hop on, let you guys know that I got a official diagnosis of high functioning autism or Asperger's, my thoughts on that, what the process was like, and what the effect was like on me. Hopefully that was helpful to anybody that is going through the process or has been through the process or is struggling with the process or anything like that. But yeah, that's all for today, I think. Stream and download on all podcast streaming services. I'm back after a 2-week break and hopefully we'll get back into the swing of things now. I promise you, I've said this so many times, and yet episode after episode where there is not a guest, there will be a guest soon. If there is not a guest soon, I will end the podcast entirely because I'm that bad at organising things. I'm feeling in a better frame of mind now after having a kind of weird last couple of days with obviously that big kind of just news really. But yeah, that's all for me for now. Hopefully speak to you very, very soon, and bye.